Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to doing what if Krillin was reincarnated. Also, if you like my videos, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell and make sure you have it on all. With that out of the way, let's begin. Chapter 9, the Easy Budokai Tournament. The preliminaries were decided. Everyone was sorted into a group. I was in Group B, Goku was in Group A, and Jackie-chan in Group C. It seemed we wouldn't meet in the preliminaries, just like in the anime. Maybe it was fate. I stood near the Group A stage. Goku waved at me and showed me his number. It seemed he would start as the second match. Since he was number 3, I looked towards my lot. It said number 2 on it. I was in the first match. I got on the stage, and across from me stood a buff giant man. He sneered at me and stared menacingly. He thought he was going to have an easy fight, since I was a kid. Very wrong for him. After the announcer counted down and the fight started, I just pushed him outside the stage. He couldn't do anything against me. He had a power level of 10 at maximum. Well, he also had no technique or kai. The same could be said about Goku's opponents, and Rashi's as well. They were all too weak, especially since we were stronger compared to the original story as well, while the other people were just as strong. The top 3 in the preliminaries would get a chance to fight on the main stage of the tournament. Of course, the first one was me, the second was an Indian-looking guy named Namu, and the third was a girl named Ran Fan. The other groups had people that were not known well besides Yamcha. He got second in Jackie-chan's block. After a quick rest and meal before the fight, the blonde announcer with glasses and a suit made his way out to the main stage while he announced the order of the fights. There were Namu vs Ran Fan, Yamcha vs Jackie-chan, and me vs Goku. The other side characters would fight each other. I didn't care about them, so I just hunned the others' names out. The Namu vs Ran Fan fight wasn't interesting in my opinion, since I was stronger than both of them combined. The only fun thing was how the woman fought. She tried to seduce him, and she even threw her pants away in hope of distracting Namu. But Namu defeated her after an internal fight. From the anime, I knew this guy wanted to use the money to buy water for his village. Yamcha vs Jackie-chan was even easier, since Yamcha, even though was a bit stronger than the original Rashi, was way stronger than before. Yamcha put up a good fight, and even used his wolf fang fist, but Rashi was just going easy on him. As I observed the fight, I could see the flaws in Yamcha's techniques. He wasn't that great compared to true blue martial artists, but he had a strong body from training in the desert, and he had great potential, for a human at least. The fight ended in Rashi's victory. Yamcha, dejected about being beaten by Old Man, was sulking when he got out of the ring. When he saw me and my uniform, his eyes brightened. The old turtle hermit was still pretty popular to the people known of martial arts. Yamcha made his way towards me and asked, "Krillin, you have trained with the great mutant Rashi?" I answered nonchalantly, "Yeah, what about it?" He sweat dropped at my response and said, "Could you ask him if he could train me as well? You were strong before, as I saw how Goku looked at you, seemingly wanting to defeat you, and he beat me pretty hard back then." I chuckled and said, "You could just ask him yourself after the tournament ends, he should be around." Yamcha nodded with a smile on his face, not knowing that Jackie-chan Akarashi already saw potential in him and he wouldn't mind if he asked him to be his student. It was finally time for one of the big fights before the finals, me versus Goku, and boy will it be good. I decided to suppress my power around Goku's for a more interesting fight. Winning in the tournament won't get me much besides the prize money, and even if I got the money, it would go to the food bill for the celebration feast after. We both made our way to the middle of the ring, and the announcer started to spice things up, saying of how we both were students under the same teacher, the great turtle hermit Rashi. We both bowed towards each other before entering the turtle's skull fighting stance. Goku immediately started the fight with a right hook, which I dodged. I fought him so many times during our training that I could predict what his moves were. But Goku was a fighting genius who could adapt his fighting style on the moment, so I was kind of caught off guard when he tried to slap me with his tail. Did he want to pull a Raditz on me like when the old Krillin got bitch smacked off the game house? Bad for him, since I easily caught his tail and spun him ready to throw him out of the ring. But Goku caught the edge of the ring and jumped right back up in it before he could touch the grass outside the ring. He used his momentum to almost fly towards me with a punch. Since I couldn't dodge it due to his speed and my self-restricted power level, I punched towards him and our fists clashed. His Saiyan biology let him take the punch full on, even though my body was stronger. But he also staggered backward due to the impact. Even though I didn't use the full power of my kai, my body was more tempered due to the amount of kai I had in it is higher than his. Our fight continued, punches and kicks. Goku even used the after image technique on me to sucker punch me, but I punched him right back in the chin. He got dazed and fell after that. I expected he would immediately try to attack me after he used the after image technique, so I clenched my jaw so the damage would be minimized. Goku stood down on the ground as the announcer started to count 1 2 3 4 9. But Goku suddenly sprang up from the ground and cupped his hands together. It was time for the final attack that would decide the match. I grinned and cupped my hands as well. Some of the people in the crowd knew of the legendary Kamehameha technique and gasped. Blue orbs started to rotate between our hands as we launched them towards each other. We were locked in a stalemate, but I decided to stop holding back and put forth all of my kai into the attack. It engulfed Goku and he flew out of the ring. His clothes were burnt, and his face was black. His hair also looked quite bad. He just got back up bowed, while saying that it was a great fight and left for the stands. He was surely going to go and eat something after the fight. The announcer asked me if I wanted to rest before the final fight, but I just gave him the go, and that I'm ready and prepared for it. Daki-chan made his way on the ring and we both bowed. I smiled and used my telepathy to talk with him. So master, why didn't you tell us you will participate in this tournament? Rashi was stunned, but he responded with his telepathic powers. Ah, I see you know quite a bit. Is my disguise that bad, Krillin? It seems you also have quite a strong mind for you to be able to use telepathy at such a young age. I just smirked and nodded my head. The crowd didn't understand why we were standing motionless for a few seconds before I nodded my head. Our actions seemed strange in their eyes. The announcer already gave the go before I started to talk to him, but after I nodded to him immediately attacked. This old man had a lot of experience, and quite a lot of tricks in his sleeves. If I didn't fight him seriously, and take him by surprise, he might even beat me. Rashi was surprised, but he parried my blows with his hands. He winced as my strength was almost near his, and his body was quite old. We fought back and forth before the woolly old man used his Thunder Shock surprise as an attack, after he used the after image technique. I took the attack full on, but unlike how Rashi imagined it, I didn't get stunned. Instead, the lighting started to arc around me, as it started to turn from a dull yellow to a light blue instead. My clothes started to flutter as the lightning encased me. I used my Kai to take control of the lighting that was pouring around my body to forcefully integrate it with my aura. I achieved Godspeed with the help of Master Rashi unintentional help. I always tried to do it myself with my internal Kai that was transformed into lighting, but I could never quite get it. It seemed I had to take in lightning from outside forces to achieve the Godspeed technique. I could feel my thoughts going a million times faster than before. It seemed like everyone stopped in time. I felt like I was using Hit's time skip at this moment. I tried something as I punched Rashi quickly 3 times in the chest with my fist. He flew outside the ring with 3 holes in his black martial suit. I made sure to not injure him hard as I restrained myself, but he got taken down so easily. The announcer was dumbfounded as he looked at me. His eyes were wide open behind his glasses. The electricity around me faded as he announced me as the winner of the tournament. After we got back into the building behind the stage, the announcer gave me the prize money 300,000 zeni in cash. I smiled, but my smile disappeared when Goku came and his stomach growled. I had a glutton Saiyan who I had to feed now. We met back with Bulma and Rashi outside. Rashi already talked with Namu before we got out, and he gave him a capsule that he filled with water from a nearby well. Yamcha was already on his knees ready to take Rashi as a master. It seemed he was desperate to become relevant. It was like he already had the premonition he would become useless in the future. We all gone to a nearby restaurant in the city and Goku ate almost half of my money. He ate only half, because the others decided to pitch in when the bill came. Bulma could have paid it all by herself, but she said that she forgot her wallet home. After that long adventure, and she was so stingy she didn't even want to pay for one meal. Whatever, after that Goku decided that it was time to roam the world, and he said that he would meet up with us after a few years when the next Budokai tournament would be hosted. Every tournament was hosted once every 3 years. It was 5 years before, but the tournament's popularity made it reduce its delay. Goku left on foot. Yamcha made his way back with me to Master Rashi's house. Pure followed, while Bulma also decided to come with us to keep Yamcha company, while also to observe how we trained. We all made our way back on Rashi's island, and we were confronted by a blonde launch and a goddamn minigun that she pulled out of nowhere me, and Rashi immediately got in front and plucked the bullets out of the air. Launch sneezed and she became blue-haired again, and threw the minigun in the ocean, wondering how she got the gun in the first place. Bulma and Yamcha sweat dropped while the poor cat Pure was terrified. Yamcha immediately wanted to start training, so we had to relocate back to the other island. After we relocated, it was immediately time for another session of training. I increased my gravity field to 4 times normal, and put on a turtle shell that was as heavy as 100 kilograms. I also focused on training the turtle school's mentor. I was just waiting to get my hand on the information about Goku's adventures. The Red Ribbon Army would surely appear on the news. Maybe I could even join him on some, just for fun. I also wanted some of that super ultra divine water. It could increase my body's potential, and also excavate some it, so I would become stronger. I could also gather the Dragon Balls again with him, or I could let the Red Ribbon Army gather them for me, so I would just steal them. Yeah, I would do just that, let them gather the Dragon Balls and steal them. I already asked Bulma for the radar, and I could use it to track their progress. My next wish will be very important towards my future martial arts potential. Maybe it could even make me rival the almighty Saiyans, and their thousands of different hairs and hair colors. Chapter 10. The Second Wish. It was time. By my calculations, Goku would have fought with the Red Ribbon Army already. Seeing that Goku had the 4th Dragon Ball, it would surely displease the Red Ribbon Army generals, and they would try to get it from him. Unfortunately for them, none would be able to, and they would have to hire mercenary Tao. I had to go to Korin's tower first, and make sure that Yupa's dad Bor didn't die, so Goku wouldn't have to use the Dragon Balls to revive him, thus making me wait one more year. Or angering Goku, making him displeased with my selfishness in the future. I didn't want to become Goku's enemy as there was no reason to. Also, Bor's death can be prevented as I know everything that would happen more or less. I made my way towards Korin Tower by flying, and it took me up to a few days, and I waited to observe the duo of father and son that were camping under the tower. After a few more days of waiting and meditating, Goku came in looking a bit ragged, and mercenary Tao appeared as well. They immediately started fighting, while Tao was taking advantage of Goku's weakness of him being concerned about the two persons below the tower. He tried to kill Bor, but I put on an invisible barrier that stopped his attack. Goku immediately headbutted him at the first moment he was distracted and tried to hit him with the Kamehameha. Due to being dizzy, he was hit full on by it, and he disappeared in a cloud of dust. I felt his Kai, he didn't die. He would become a cyborg later, and get defeated easily by Tien during the last tournament of the Dragon Ball Anime. Goku wasn't sure why Bor didn't get hit by Tao's attack, but since he couldn't sense Kai properly, yet he was just glad nothing happened to the two innocent people. There was no reason now for Goku to scale Korin's tower. That meant he wouldn't use the divine water yet. I think I changed the plot somewhat now. I guess he will try to get the water after he gets pawned by Piccolo. He was already a bit stronger than the original since Tao didn't beat him towards near death. In the original, Tao beat the living shit out of him before trying to execute him with the Dadanpare, a patented technique of the Crane School, which could be a useful addition to my arsenal. It was faster than the Kamehameha, and it had good piercing capability. It was a weaker special beam cannon. Goku left after he made sure both of them were truly okay. He also had a Dragon Ball radar in his hands. It seemed Bulma made him another one. He was smiling. I guess Bulma informed me of taking the Dragon Ball radar, and he thought we would meet during our adventure of gathering the Dragon Balls. He was right, we would meet, but only during the final phase. No reason for me to go over all of the planet to get the balls, when the numerous people of the RRA can just do it for me. They'll just swoop in and relieve them of their balls just right after they fully get all of them. One ball was in a direction towards the north, one was with Goku, and 5 others were all clustered together in a different location. The Dragon Ball up north started to move. It seemed it was picked by Red Ribbon Army fellow. Time to follow them all back home just like Goku will do. I flew covertly as I followed the Red Ribbon Army grunt in his plane. He couldn't sense my Kai, and I was flying way above him. He couldn't detect me at all. After a few hours of flight, we got to the Red Ribbon's army headquarters. Goku was already wreaking havoc in it. Soldiers tried to shoot him, but the bullets just bounced off his thick skin. I wonder what kind of special bullets did they hit Goku in Super when they tried to rob him of his vegetables. These ones didn't do jack against him. Well, he actually got scratched as an adult, which was able to practically destroy the universe if he puts his mind to it. Was this what's called shitty writing? Whatever the writers of the Dragon Ball Super smoked when they thought of that scene, I don't want any of that. The illusions were too much. After a while of fighting, Goku was tied down by a black man in a mecha. The funny thing was this man's name was Mr. Black. Toriyama had fun writing his manga back before people wouldn't get offended by every little thing. Mr. Black snatched the Dragon Ball from Goku and threw it towards his boss Mr. Red, a guy who was shorter than the original Krillin. I already knocked out the soldier who had the Dragon Ball and took his uniform, while Goku fought with Mr. Black, which I knew would end pretty soon. I decided to directly make my way costumed as a red ribbon soldier towards the boss's room. The boss was practically glowing when he saw the last Dragon Ball. Well, one of his eyes was shining as the other was covered by an eye patch. But before he could do anything, I knocked him down by appearing behind him and chopping him on the neck. He got lucky. In the original, he was killed by Mr. Black after he heard of his wish of becoming taller. I don't blame him, since I did the same wish, albeit different, as I would grow more in the future. Goku outside already killed Mr. Black with his Kamehameha. The first had to be fast. I immediately summoned Shenron with his chance. Arise, Shenron, and grant me my wish. I already threw the Dragon Balls outside. The sky darkened as the dragon made his way out of the balls and said his normal introduction. Who has summoned me? I can grant you one wish. I immediately got down to business as I didn't want to explain Goku much, besides that I got the Dragon Balls before Mr. Red could make his wish, and I got a wish instead. Give me an extremely high healing factor which can stop my aging after I fully grew up to the maximum capability of my body, which will also increase my adaptability in Kai. Make it so it increases every time I'm healed from any damage I receive. Shenron started to contemplate and said in a booming voice, "This wish is doable. While it's kind of hard on my power to grant you such a power with so many possibilities, it can be done." His eyes glowed, and I could feel searing heat start to rush around my body. I could feel my Kai increase from it a bit from all the training, and the wish from now I could sit at a power level of 300. The Dragon Balls scattered while I caught the 4-star ball before Goku came. I tried to cut myself up with some Kai to see how I would heal. The wound that appeared on my arm immediately healed up, and I could feel my Kai increase a bit. Almost by whom I could say it was a very minimal increase, maybe not even one, it was below 1 for sure, but this wasn't even a flesh wound. Goku came looking around before looking at me and the petrified Dragon Ball in my hand. He immediately beamed happily at seeing me, then he asked what happened. I said that I was making my way towards the base as it had all the Dragon Balls, and I didn't have to search for them. When I suddenly saw General Red, which was outside and knockout, I dragged him outside, of course, trying to talk to Shenron and express his wish. I just knocked him out and made a different wish instead. When Goku inquired about my wish, I just told him that I would never age and grow old like Master Roshi. Goku nodded his head, also thinking that Master Roshi's body was getting kind of frail in his old age, and he knew how important a martial artist's body was, so he didn't doubt my words. I said 3/4 of a lie and a truth, so it was a truth for him. I decided to ignore Jiro as he would make 18 who she was, even though it would be hard on her. I wouldn't have to train her, and worry about her being too weak, if he didn't make her an android. But becoming an android gave her infinite amounts of energy never being exhausted, while also increasing her power level above normal Super Saiyan's level. She could also grow stronger in the future, even though it would be painful for her. It was a shortcut to power. I made sure to not let him take my blood though. I didn't need Cell to become immortal with my newly got ability in Piccolo's cells. After we left, an old man got out of the rubble and swore revenge under his breath. More on Goku rather than me, as I didn't kill anyone. Red was still alive too. I just knocked him out and stole the Dragon Balls. Jiro maybe thought I was just a prophet, or of what happened, and that I knew Goku too. He wasn't particularly interested in me. We made our way to a city, and Goku ate quite a lot. I ate too, and I had to pay since Goku had no money. Good that I saved from training with Roshi, while I also had the remaining money from the prize. After we caught up properly, Goku decided that he wouldn't return to train with Roshi again, as he wanted to explore the world more. I didn't stop him. It was his adventure while I had mine, which was a slow and steady rise to power. I had my gravity field, which made the need of a gravity machine obsolete, while my gravity field could increase infinitely with my mind's might. I should learn to materialize too, so I could make my own weighted clothes whenever I want, but that would take some more time since I shouldn't go to Kami's now. The old man was a bit heavy-handed on humans that tried to get to him before he met Goku. I also didn't want to meet that creepy genie Mr. Popo. I returned to Roshi's island, and continued my training. There was only one more year till the next Budokai Tenkaichi anyways, so I had quite a lot of time to experiment with my new healing factor, and properly master the Godspeed technique. I could also try to combine it with my full power technique, and the 6 dots. For now, I could barely use 4 dots, but the Kai increase was substantial, even though the consumption was extremely high. With my base power level of 316 times, it was 4,800. I could already one-shot Raditz and maybe even fight Nappa a bit in my strongest form, if I could combine it with the full power technique and Godspeed, which gave me a power level multiplier of 2 points. 5 increased my power level would be 18,000. As strong as Vegeta when he first came to Earth. That was without having the Kakin. Even though I didn't have the Super Saiyan form, I had more techniques which would make me maybe as strong as a Super Saiyan 1 or 2. Considering the 6 dots would give me a 64 times increase, making it a bit stronger than an unmastered Super Saiyan transformation. I'm not sure if the multiplier will increase if I master it like the Super Saiyan transformation though. In general, it increased to 100 times when mastered. Maybe mine will increase to 114 times. Anyways, my healing powers were amazing. After 6 months of training, my power level increased to 390, and it was still increasing amazingly fast. I could also abuse my body even more, and its durability and strength increased by countless times. I also started my hand into learning the Kienzan, which was a broken ability, considering Krillin's power level was almost 50,000 during the Frieza saga, and he could have killed Frieza, which had a power level beyond 1 million, with it shows how broken the ability was. Well, Krillin once hit Cell with it, but he dismissed it, which showed that the Kienzan couldn't cut someone if the difference in power was extremely high, but that was perfect Cell, which only a Super Saiyan 2 could defeat. Also, Cell could have regenerated from it even if he was cut. It was a broken ability against people who couldn't regenerate, so Cell and Buu were the only ones not particularly affected by it. It wasn't hard to master the technique, but it was quite draining. By creating the Kienzan, I got insights into Kai forming and shaping. Maybe next I could even make a Kai blade or weapon instead of a simple disc. Things were looking well for me. Roshi also upped his training by a lot as he saw me train day and night. Yamcha was inspired by my training as well, and he started to train with renewed vigor. I also did bonus training behind their backs through, but they won't learn about it, or they would call me a freak with infinite stamina. Especially since my turtle shell now weighed above 200 kilograms. My training was going extremely well, and I guess Goku was pushing himself quite a lot out there too. He knew I would become stronger while he was adventuring out there, so he wouldn't slack off at all. I first thought that my life would suck if I became Krillin, but I realized the Krillin never reached his true potential, nor used the Dragon Balls properly to catch up to Goku in the Dragon Ball universe, or well, the author never cared about anyone else besides the main character. Chapter 11. Second World Tournament in Piccolo. It was time for the second world tournament that we would participate in. If I remember correctly, Tian and Xiaozu would also participate in this one. I wonder if they got stronger after Goku beat their ass. Now I'm sure as hell Goku beat them, since he was way stronger than in the original. I was wearing the turtle guy, Yamcha was wearing one too. Now being a proud turtle school disciple, he thought he would surely win this tournament and wash away his shame from the last one. Too bad for him, there was a chance he wouldn't even get out of the preliminaries. His power level increased to 160, pretty good but not enough. My power level was already 430 or so, while Rashi's was 340. I was already as strong as Goku when Raditz came. By the time Raditz made his debut, he would die to Rashi. Let's not even talk about how strong Goku will become. I was 14 and a half years now, and I already grew quite tall compared to other kids my age. I was as tall as Yamcha now at 1 meter and 69 centimeters. Yamcha would also grow some more, but I wasn't at my limit either. We used Rashi's plane to leisurely make our way towards the Papaya Island, and we got ourselves registered and asked about Goku. It seemed just like in the original he would run late. And speak of the devil, 1 minute before the registration closed, Goku came in wearing nothing but a leopard skin, and he had 2 meat sticks in his hands. He ran so fast clouds of dust appeared behind him. I wonder why didn't he use the cloud. After he registered, Master Rashi also gave him a turtle school uniform. Suddenly a scoff was heard beside us as an old man with a crane hat, glasses and a tiny mustache appeared. He wore green clothes with the kanji of crane imprinted big on the front. With him came a 3-eyed youth who wore a white tank top and green pants. He was Tian. Behind Tian was Xiaozu, a little mime-like guy with a pale face and red dots on his cheeks. He wore something similar to the old man without the crane hat or glasses. Master Crane immediately started to laugh when he scanned us with his eyes and said, "Hey Rashi, it seems your students are getting worse every year, while mine are flourishing." He pointed towards Tian and Xiaozu, and I could feel their kite. They were pretty strong, Tian standing at a steady 250, while Xiaozu stood at a 100, but they were really weak compared to us. Tian could only beat Yamcha and Xiaozu no one. Even if he used his telekinesis tricks, it would be hard for him to bridge the gap, especially since his body was quite weak as well. Goku's power level stood at a big 340, as strong as Rashi. I was impressed. He seemed he wanted to become stronger than me. We made our way inside the preliminaries room. Bulma, Oolong Pure and Launch also came with us, but they had to wait outside just like the last tournament. We drew the lots, and surprise, Xiaozu tempered with them. Poor Yamcha wouldn't even get to the finals as he drew Tian's group. Xiaozu also wouldn't as he drew Jackie Chun's group. Goku luckily didn't draw mine. We would meet in the finals for sure. Maybe he would even beat Rashi this time. The fights in my block were pretty boring, as no one was strong enough to even last a puff of breath from me. I didn't need to use any bit of Kai as my body was extremely strong. I just had to gently push them to make them fly away. The announcer that stood on my ring sweat dropped at how strong I was. He was a bit scared of me. He wasn't the main announcer, he was a monk at the temple near the tournament. Jackie-chan also breezed through his opponents. Xiaozu tried to put up a fight. His physics tricks didn't faze Rashi at all. Rashi just beat him down and threw him out of the ring. Tian was angry at Rashi, and he swore that he would defeat him in the finals. Yamcha gave it all his out. He even used a Kamehameha and a new Wolf Fang Fist, but he got his ass handed to him by Tian. Even though the fight did take a bit of time, I guess Tian didn't want to tire himself before the main fights. He also eyed me wearily. Seemingly his third eye could see through my true strength a bit. Goku's block wasn't interesting too. He was quite bored, and he even yawned a few times during the fights. Finally, the main tournament was starting. Since we all fought our opponents, the order was Jackie Chun versus Tian, a dragon-looking guy named Jiren versus Goku, and me versus the disgusting guy named Bacterian. I didn't have a visible nose, but I still could smell him, and damn, he smelled like feces and gutter trash combined. That guy hasn't showered for months on end, from the announcer's words. I was thoroughly disgusted by this unhygienic fellow. I went up first, and I didn't even let the disgusting guy touch me. I just blew him away with a flick of my hand, a strong wind blowing him down from the stage. I wouldn't want to dirty my guy fighting such a human abomination. Jiren versus Goku was next. The dragon tried to bind him with the pink gum he spews out of his mouth, but Goku's superior power level made his try to become futile and useless. He got knocked out of the ring 20 seconds later. Jackie-chan and Tian came next. Rashi under his disguise was seen through by Tian, and he tried to unveil him under everyone's eyes, but Rashi's antics made him fail. Rashi shot a Kamehameha at Tian, but he dodged it and smirked. Tian did the Kamehameha as well, and he said that it was a crude technique unlike the Crane school ones. The Crane Hermit Shen laughed from the viewer's stand and nodded his head. Rashi just grinned and didn't comment. He didn't even use 50% of his power in that Kamehameha. He was testing Tian. He was interested in his potential. He could also sense with his mental powers that he wasn't truly evil, and he said in Tian's mind with his telepathy, "Your heart was led astray by that woolly old fox Shen. I can feel the potential within you, and that you truly don't wish to become one who walks on the path of assassination. Why don't you join my school?" Tian scoffed, but he didn't deny outright. Rashi smiled at his response and walked out of the ring. If he could persuade such a talented young man to walk the path of righteousness, it didn't matter if he lost or won. Tian was dumbfounded. In the last moment his third eye scanned Rashi and he found out he was way stronger than him. He sweat-dropped. He didn't fully understand why Rashi let him win, and that put him on thoughts as he recalled Rashi's words. Master Crane just whistled and laughed. It was time for Goku and Tian to fight. After Tian rested for a while they each made their way onto the stage, and Tian said, "I can now set the score with you for what happened back then in the mountains." Goku grinned and said, "Well, you attacked me first so I had to defend myself." Tian immediately used his forearms technique, and 2 more arms sprouted from his shoulders, and he started to attack Goku using his extra limbs. As the saying was, 4 arms are better than 2, Goku was overwhelmed by the increased amount of limbs before he started to use his tail. After Goku started to use his tail, the fight started to incline in Goku's favor, but Tian used his patented solar flare to blind Goku, and he tried to throw him out of the ring. Unfortunately for him, Goku used his other sense to dodge and headbutt him. Even though the headbutt was quite weak, it still pushed Tian away from him enough so he could recover his vision. Goku started to channel the Kamehameha while Tian took to the skies and started to charge his tri-beam. It was a way stronger technique than the Kamehameha, but the drawback was that it used life force, and overuse would put the user's life in peril. I observed how Tian used the technique, and I would try to master it myself later. Tian cupped his hands in a triangular position, while he started to charge his Kai, which took yellow tint. He told Goku that he should dodge this one if he wanted to continue living. Goku stopped his Kamehameha as he felt a threat from the tri-beam. Shen immediately shouted to launch it, and Tian did. The stage was no more, and Goku was nowhere to be seen either. Tian looked a bit sad as he didn't spot Goku anywhere. But suddenly Goku flew right out of the hole and uppercut Tian in the jaw, making him go out of the set bounds and unconscious. Shen booed, and Goku landed near Tian. Tian got up after a while and he was embarrassed at his loss. Master Shen's boos didn't help either, and he realized that training with Master Shen was kind of futile, as he started to treat him worse and worse these days. His training techniques were also getting quite old, and they didn't make him grow strong at the same pace either. It was time for the finals, but there was no ring left. The blonde announcer with sunglasses sweat-dropped, not surely knowing what to say, but afterward, a fat monk came and whispered something into his ear. The announcer started to talk into his microphone and said, "The last fight will be moved indoors and we will let the spectators come in as well. We will use the preliminaries room." The preliminaries room was quite small so not everyone could enter. The viewers roared and made sure to express their discomfort at not being able to see the final fight. But the blonde announcer said, "While not everyone can see the fight live, we have installed a few monitors outside which you can view it from." The crowd started to calm down before they made their way outside. But the preliminaries room was still pretty packed. I made my way towards the stage, and Goku did the same. We did our salute before the fight, and entered our stances while the announcer counted down. 3, 2, 1, start. We started to trade blow at such high speeds the cameras couldn't truly show us. They could only show blurry after images. The ones inside didn't see better anyway. Only Tian, Rashi, Jiaozu and Yamcha could see us properly, and they all gasped while Rashi thought, "I think this is the last time I will enroll. Krillin and Goku are getting stronger way too fast. They are leaving me into the dust. But that doesn't matter, I will stop training. I will continue as much as I can, and try to catch up to my students." Our competitiveness and fight have ignited the old martial spirit of the turtle hermit. His blood was pumping, and he looked like he grew a few years younger. Back to the fight. We just punched and dodged back and forth. I was testing Goku to see his current martial prowess, and I was impressed. By fighting all over the world and experiencing tons of different styles, did wonder for his technique. I had my healing factor, so I could fight night and day without getting tired at all, but Goku didn't have that advantage. Well, I was also stronger, and I still could use my full power technique Godspeed, and my dots, which I decided to name simply as Super Mode. Scenes got Super Saiyan, but I was a superhuman that didn't reach his full potential yet. The end wasn't surprising at all. Goku got blew off the stage after he started to stagger and grew tired. I won the second Budokai Tenkaichi tournament, and the reward was doubled up to 600,000 zeni. The money would come in handy as I wanted to learn magic from Rashi's sister Baba, and she was a known miser who extorted exorbitant sums from her customers. While someone could fight to get a divination scot-free from her, I doubt she would teach me without money. After the tournament, we had another feast. This time Bulma paid. Good for me since I didn't want to waste my money. I face-palmed. I actually forgot the money bag which I was supposed to get from the blonde announcer, and made my way back to get it. When I was there, the announcer immediately gave me the bag, and excused himself as he too forgot to give me the bag. Suddenly a green-winged humanoid creature attacked me, trying to kill me instantly with his left claw, which tried to break my neck. Unfortunately for him, I was twice as strong as him or more. His power level was around 220. I immediately appeared behind him, and I thrust my Kai-infused hand into his chest and pierced his heart with my newly learned Kai blade. He gurgled and muttered something about Great King Piccolo and died. The announcer was shocked, but he saw how I killed the creature in self-defense, so he didn't comment, and just ran away hurriedly. I deactivated the Kai blade. It consumed quite a bit of Kai, but the Kai immediately filled up again due to the healing factor. King Piccolo got unsealed by the Three Stooges, Mai, Pilaf and Shu, and it seemed he was also way stronger than the original. Did my interference with the world cause a butterfly effect which will also strengthen all of the villains? That meant when Raditz came he might be above 1000 power level, but it was unlikely, since I didn't interact with anyone outside of Earth. Whatever, I still had some wishes to do, and with them, I could surely even pass up Saiyans in talent or at least rival them. By the time Raditz came, I would have mastered my dots, and I might have also gotten Kaken. With my healing factor, I could push the Kaken to 50 times by my estimations, but more than that and my body wouldn't heal the damage, and it would just explode. I could heal myself back from the bodily explosion, but that meant I couldn't fully use Kaken above 50 times in a fight. Anyways, I thought that I would intercept Demon Piccolo's wish for eternal youth, and get myself one more wish. Maybe I would make him spawn Piccolo Jr. early, but from what I saw, even though I could defeat him, I don't think I could without using Godspeed or my super mode. It seemed his base was higher than me, since his impure spawn had a power level almost at 50% of mine. Whatever, I still had the radar from when Bulma gave me it last time. I would let Goku's ball get stolen so he would get trashed, and he would go drink the ultra divine water. While he drank the water, I would steal Piccolo's wish for eternal youth, thus making him even weaker, and I would just let Goku deal with him. Piccolo Jr. was an indispensable ally in the future. He would also tutor Gohan. I didn't want to take care of Goku's child when he will go on his training spree God knows where, when he got the urge to train. Gohan would need a paternal figure in his life, and Piccolo would be it. Well, at least till he will get to train with Goku in the hyperbolic time chamber. As I looked on the radar, I could see Goku's ball, and that 4 others were gathered. 2 others were quite a distance from each other, which meant the Pilaf gang and Piccolo still had to gather these 2 before they would come for Goku's. Piccolo would also be more wary of martial artists as his spawn died, and he got the feedback from him. Chapter 12. Third wish and Piccolo's death. It's been a few days and all 6 Dragon Balls were gathered in the same location. Only Goku's remained. I looked at the radar and waited patiently. It was time for the old demon to try and get his hands on the last Dragon Ball. I waited on Rashi's island. Goku was still wandering the world. He said that he would come back to train with us a bit later for the next tournament. I was with Tien, Yamcha, Rashi, Chiaotzu and Launch on the island. Immediately when Blonde Launch spotted Tien, he started to flirt with him. She liked his rugged look and his 3 eyes for some reason. I left the island after the daily training. My power level already increased to 460. I felt like the more I was training, the more my body was unlocking its true potential with the help of my healing factor. I could feel that my body was already on its path of limitless growth. My mind was getting stronger and stronger, but it started to hit a wall due to reaching the highest stage of Rashi's training technique. I flew towards the 6 Dragon Balls and masked my Kai, so King Piccolo couldn't sense me. After a while, I spotted the giant ship of the Pilaf Gang trio. I felt Piccolo's Kai inside the ship. It wasn't that strong, it was only 420, a bit higher than Goku's by 80. It seemed that giving birth took a toll on his aged body, and his energy reserves were already starting to go down. Even though he was as strong as Piccolo would be when Raditz came, there should be a logical reason for this to happen. I wasn't sure, but when Kami got weaker, Piccolo got stronger before Piccolo Jr. was born. Maybe that meant Kami was in a pinch right now. I followed the airship from above as it made its way towards Goku's location, which was pretty far in the wild. After a few more hours of flying, we were at the destination. A fat green lizard-looking humanoid flew out of the ship and tried to attack Goku with a flying punch. I sensed his Kai, and it was quite low, a little above 200. Goku easily dispatched of him with his Kamehameha. I heard a gasp of pain coming out of the airship. It seemed the second death of his progeny. Hit him quite hard, literally, since a bit of his life force was expended every time he gave birth. It was also linked with his kids. Piccolo was quite angry. His power level already dropped to 390, and he looked visibly older than he did in the main world. He was pissed his sharp teeth were gritted, and if looks could kill Goku, would have already died 100 times. King Piccolo said in a raspy voice as he levitated towards the ground in Goku's direction. So you are the one who killed Tambourine, and now Symbol as well. I'll make sure to torture you slowly before I take the Dragon Ball from you. Goku was a bit confused when he heard about Tambourine, as this was the first green creature he killed, but he shrugged nonetheless. He didn't care. He could sense that Piccolo was strong, his Saiyan instincts told him so. So he just decided to go with it and fight him. At first he got the upper hand against Piccolo as he was old and quite weak after he lost 2 sons, but after a while Piccolo started to take the upper hand with his experience. Piccolo fought tons of martial artists and killed them ruthlessly before he was sealed by Master Mutato, Master Rashi's master. Unfortunately, Goku got distracted by one of Piccolo's tricks. While he was distracted, Piccolo grabbed the scruff of his shirt and threw him into the air and hit him with the mouth beam. Goku fell from the sky unconscious and heavily damaged. Piccolo put his hand on his neck artery, checking for a pulse. When he found none, he started to laugh. He took the Dragon Ball from his chest pocket and left. After Piccolo left, Goku started coughing, and he crawled away slowly, hoping to find something to eat to ease his pain and heal himself a bit. From what I observed, it seemed he was trying to go to Korin's tower. He still remembered of Yupa's and Bora's words, that whoever climbed the tower could meet Korin, and get a special water from him which would make him stronger. He needed that water to stop Piccolo. He thought that even I wasn't as strong as Piccolo, as I never truly thrashed him around as Piccolo did. I knew what would happen from now on. He would meet with Yajirobe the fat samurai and he would take him to Korin's tower. I decided to follow Piccolo, so I could steal his wish. It was time for my third wish. This one was extremely important. It would resolve my lack of training techniques forever. All the other important techniques can be learned from other people, but what I wanted only Shenron or Porunga could give me. Piccolo stopped a few kilometers away from the location where he had beaten Goku. He made the Pilaf gang to carry the Dragon Balls down to him from the ship. As he started to prepare to call for Shenron, I blitzed in my Godspeed mode, and I hit him squarely in the head, not enough to kill him, but enough to give him a concussion and knock him out. The Pilaf gang almost peed themselves in fear watching the great King Piccolo go down like a sack of potatoes. For convenience's sake, I knocked all of them out as well. I started to chant Shenron's incantation. Arise Shenron and grant me my wish. Unlike in the past, Shenron said something that surprised me. It has summoned me. Oh wait, it's you again, goddammit, does no one else gathers these stupid things beside you? I sweat dropped. Seems Shenron wasn't an NPC who would have a single conversation line. Shenron continued. Whatever, you know how things are, already come and state your wish. I thought long and hard for a few seconds before I decided on my wish and intoned it loudly in a clear voice. Shenron, give me the best training techniques that are suited for my body and mind, so they can grow endlessly without any bottleneck stopping them. Shenron's eyes glowed and 2 training techniques appeared in my head. He didn't even bother to say farewell as he just dispersed. I grabbed the 4-star ball for Goku before it made its way around the world. I left the wilderness, leaving the knocked out Piccolo and the Pilaf gang to bask in the afternoon sun. While I was on my way to Rashi's house, I analyzed both of the mind and body training techniques given to me by Shenron. They were quite special. The body training technique would continuously temper the Kai and body at the same time, with also purifying them, increasing my control of Kai to perfection at the same time. The mind training technique could be used endlessly to strengthen my soul and my psychic powers. I already could go up to 50 times Earth's gravity with my mind. This was my limit with Rashi's training technique. But now as I trained with this new technique, the gravity could increase to infinite amounts. The same could be said about my telekinesis and mind reading. If I trained my soul enough, I could even read Beerus's mind without him noticing, no matter if my body's and Kai's strength was below his. The training techniques were both tailored towards my physique and unique soul. No one else could train in them. Maybe my descendants could have diminished effects. I nodded to myself. This way I had no use of the Dragon Balls for myself anymore, anything else I could do by myself. As my mind grew stronger and stronger, I started to get ideas on how to create my techniques. I already thought of learning something similar to Jin's technique, but I would have 6 arms and 3 heads, and I would try to make the technique increase my power level. I was at the beginning stages of creating it, but with the new mind training technique, it won't take me much before I would surely figure it out. Imagining myself with 3 heads, 6 arms and a bunch of Kai weapons in my arms, I would surely look like an Asura from hell. I finally arrived at Rashi's house, and I could see on the news that the city was attacked by the great demon Piccolo. Rashi was sweating heavily, and his eyes were wide while he explained to others Piccolo's past achievements. I just listened, but I already knew all of this. Rashi volunteered himself to go and try to capture Piccolo again using the Mafuba wave. He wouldn't use all of his vital energy now as he was stronger than before. He also thought that time wore away Piccolo's prowess, and he was sure of himself that he could beat him with his Mafuba technique. I insisted on following him when I did Yamcha, and Tien wanted to come too. We all flew towards the city instead of taking the plane as it was faster. We made our way to find the city in flames, and countless civilians killed and devastated. Cries of sorrow and pain were everywhere. I was sad. Maybe I should have ended Piccolo there, and then to prevent all of this pain brought to everyone. The Dragon Balls would be able to revive all of them next year, but it was a scar that would remain on their minds for their whole lives. Maybe I should also ask Shenron next time to remove the memories of today's happening while reviving them. King Piccolo appeared even more aged than before, but his power level somehow spiked back to 400 plus. Maybe he was exhausting himself to put a strong front to scare us. Rashi wasn't one to talk with a deadly enemy in his face, so he immediately started to fight. He told us to stay back, knowing that I was stronger than him. Maybe he thought that Piccolo was stronger than myself, and he wanted to sacrifice himself so I could have a good future. A lonely tear appeared on my face. This was the kindest thing anyone did for me in both lives combined. After my parents died in my last life, things were hard on me. No siblings, all alone. I did inherit the house, but it was hard to live alone. I adopted a dog and a cat. I wondered if they were still alive after all the time I spent in this new world. While I was daydreaming, Rashi took quite the heavy beating from the enraged Piccolo. He didn't recognize me as I hit him too hard and too fast, while I was also encased in the electricity of my god mode. When I looked at Rashi's sorry figure, something immediately snapped inside of me. He wanted to sacrifice himself for me despite me being only his student. He thought of me as his family, like the saying was, master for a day, father for a lifetime. I couldn't let Rashi die like in the original. Because of me a lot of people died today. I was blaming myself quite a bit. I could have ended this before it could happen. I blitzed my way towards King Piccolo and hit him in the gut, throwing him away from Master Rashi. I gently took Master Rashi's wounded figure in my arms and gave him to Yamcha and Tien. They were both looking at me with wide eyes, not knowing of my true strength, as I never let them witness it. It was time for them to see it fully now. Piccolo got himself out of the rubble and with red eyes full of anger, shot a mouth kai beam towards me. I snorted and started to charge the Kamehameha wave, but I added a twist to it by giving it electricity. The beam immediately transformed from blue to pure white, and sparks could be seen dancing in my hands. I shot the beam towards his and the beams clashed. A struggle started to appear, but immediately my beam started to overcome his. Terror started to appear in Piccolo's eyes. Knowing his death was incoming, he spat his last egg, his reincarnation, and it flew towards the horizon. I didn't stop it. As the beam engulfed Piccolo, nothing of him remained. He was thoroughly dead. I sighed. I doomed a lot of innocents today, and their lives made my shoulders sag a bit. I wasn't a saint by any reason nor a hero, but it felt quite bad to know you killed an innocent indirectly or not. At least they weren't dead permanently. This thought made me snap out of my reverie. Goku was flying fastly on his Nimbus towards us. His power level increased to a whopping 550. He had a satchel with him, which I guess could only have senzu beans. He got off the cloud and dropped in front of us. He looked around, and not seeing Piccolo anywhere, asked Tien and Yamcha about it. They pointed at me, and retold everything that happened. Goku's eyes started shining. He didn't even let me rest a bit before he came at me, punch coming on flying. His power level was above mine, so there was no reason to be polite, as my muscles immediately swelled, and I transformed in my full power technique. My power was 690 in this form, so I could easily hold Goku at bay, even though he became way stronger than before. He started pouting and stopped fighting. He knew he couldn't beat me. After taking a good look at Rashi, he took a green bean from his satchel and gave it to him. His wounds healed almost immediately due to the senzu bean's effect. I would surely need to either get myself to learn how to make them or ask Shenron or Purunga for an inexhaustible supply. Rashi got up and started to do a tiny dance of victory. Even though he was injured before, he wasn't unconscious, so he knew what happened. He hugged me and told me I did well by killing the monster. I hugged him back. It felt just like back when I was a kid, and I hugged my old grandpa and grandma. I was devastated when grandma died first. Only a few years grandpa left too. I grew up with them, so it was quite a huge blow to my heart. My eyes watered, but I didn't let them leak. Yamcha and Tien looked puzzledly at me, not knowing why I was sad. Goku was looking somewhere else, so he didn't notice, but Rashi noticed my mood and asked me about it. I just responded with a bit of my life story, how I was abandoned at the temple, and I never truly knew my parents, and how I started to view him as a grandfather figure of sorts. Rashi started to smile. He didn't mind me viewing him as his grandfather. He had no children of his own, and as he trained me and Goku since we were 11 years old, he started to grow on us. Even he felt that we were like his grandchildren. In Dragon Ball Super, Goku even called him Grandpa. After everything was accounted for, they decided to gather the Dragon Balls next year, so they could revive everyone else who died in King Piccolo's attack, not knowing that Piccolo Jr. was out there. He would appear only 3 years later during the next Budokai Tenkaichi tournament, and he won't target Goku this time. Even though I didn't need Kami's techniques now, I still needed to learn a bit of magic and materialization. But before going to Kami's lookout, I decided to get a visit to Baba, so I could learn some of her techniques. She could contract ghosts as servants. It wasn't a very useful technique, but that meant no work around the house for me. Her being able to visit the other world could be learned from Kami, so I didn't need many techniques from her. When Goku heard of a new adventure, he immediately piped up ready to go. So we made our way to Baba's palace. When Rashi heard we were going to visit his sister, he decided to come as well. Tien, Yamcha and Chiaotzu thus followed. Launch didn't want to stay alone at home, so she came as well. So we were all now at Baba's palace. Chapter 13. Learning Magic and Visiting Korn. I walked towards Uranai's Baba Palace with my whole crew. They were all interested into her special abilities to find anything in fortune telling. Rashi was boasting about his sister, and how she was the greatest fortune teller on earth, unlike all those fakes out there. Their powers were truly genuine. We were met by a rotund pink ghost with a bamboo hat at the entrance. He bowed and told us to follow him inside. We met Baba inside one of the palace's rooms, and she started with her introduction. Welcome. To find one thing your heart desires, you have to pay 1 million zeni. After that, she looked towards us, and her eyes narrowed at seeing her brother Rashi. She was a woman of small stature, and she wore black witch clothes, witch hat, and all. She was sitting cross-legged on her foretelling orb. She was also missing quite a few teeth. She sneered at Rashi and asked, "What have you lost this time, you old fool?" Rashi looked betrayed and said, "Well, I might have lost something, big sister. We are not here because of that." She looked puzzled. If they weren't here for her to show missing items, then why were they here? I walked forward and said, "Baba, I'm here to learn some of your techniques, if you would be kind enough to impart them." She snorted and said, Here to learn my craft so you could make money and take away my customers. No chance I will teach you that for all the zenny in the world. I swear I didn't need her fortune-telling skills. I was here to learn how to summon those pink ghosts, and I clarified it for her. She nodded her head thoughtfully and said, "So you want ghost servants, eh? This can be done, but the price isn't low for me to teach you this summoning technique. It's as much as you would get for a session of fortune-telling, 1 million zenny, not 1 zenny less." It seems the rumors of her being a miser was true. Rashi shouted from behind and said, "No family discounts." Baba looked at Rashi and said, "For a perverted brother like you, no chance, let your soul, man." Rashi was angry and said, "Old man, but I'm your little brother, what would that make you, ancient?" Immediately Baba entered a frenzy. You could never question a woman's age, especially in the way Rashi said it. I immediately started to defuse the conflict, but it seems she didn't want to teach me anymore, even if I paid her. Rashi's comment angered her quite a lot. I insisted on her teaching me, but she said she would only teach me if I beat her champions, just like how she would act when there were people who didn't have money, and they wanted free fortune telling. We made our way outside the palace and into a fighting arena that was placed outside. I didn't want to waste time, so I got up first. Fighting with her weaklings was easy enough. Vampire Man, Invisible Man both knocked out before they could do anything. Baba was dumbfounded at my strength, but she still had 2 aces in the holes. She changed the fighting ring into the mouth of a stone statue that looked like a demon. After we entered, we would have to fight on the tongues of the demon statues. Out of the dark came a mummy-like fellow which got instantly knocked out just like the other 2. The blue-skinned man wearing a devil outfit came out next. I didn't even let him charge his devil beam, which would turn people with wicked intentions or thoughts into stone. I'm sure the beam would work on me as I couldn't ride the Nimbus. Baba was angry at how easy I disposed of her greatest warriors that almost no one could beat. She made one last warrior come out, and the warrior insisted that he would like to fight Goku and not me. He also said he wanted to fight outside. The warrior wore a green and orange martial gown. He also wore a rabbit mask, and he had a halo above his head. It was Grandpa Gohan, the poor guy who died cause Goku crushed him in his Zero form. Goku and Gohan started to fight, but it was obvious Goku was way stronger than Gohan due to my influence. Goku easily defeated him, but his mask slipped off his face, and Goku immediately started to cry rivers. He flew in the man's embrace and sobbed, calling out all the time, "Grandpa Gohan." Baba explained to us how she would contract strong fighters from the other world and bring them outside for a day, so they could fight for her. Goku was extremely sad as his reunion with Grandpa Gohan wouldn't be very long, but he accompanied him till he started to dissipate, as he was ascending back to the other world's heaven. I patted Goku on the back and he smiled towards me. It seemed he was content that he knew his grandfather had gone to heaven. Baba gave in and taught me her summoning technique. As my mind and soul grew stronger, my memory almost became photographic, and in the future, it would evolve there. I could also comprehend things way faster than when I was small. So it wasn't hard for me to learn the technique. The technique used Kai, but it wasn't a Kai technique, it was more like magic. I used my Kai to draw a special array on the ground which helped me to summon the ghost servants. I used my Kai and the array started to glow an ominous black, and out of it didn't come any strong demon, but a pink ghost with a bamboo hat which bowed to me and said, "The Bodo greets master." The ghost wasn't strong, it was supposed to be a caretaker for the house. So I gifted him to Rashi so he would cook food and do the housekeeping instead of lunch. I still lived at Kame House, so it didn't matter anymore. In the future though, I would get my own house in North City. I even saved Zenny as I didn't need to pay her because I beat her champions. Now it was time to save some senzu beans from Yajirub's fat face. I informed the others of how I would go to Korin's tower to train some more there. Goku already trained there, so he knew how things would go. Rashi was the same, but Tien and Yamcha insisted on coming with me, so they could learn Korin's techniques as well. I decided to let them come so they would become stronger for the future, so they wouldn't die and make us waste wishes which could be used for a better cause. We flew quickly towards Korin's tower, and we arrived a few hours later. We didn't need to climb the tower, so we just flew straight up and entered one of the holes below the tower. We immediately met with Korin, the fat white cat hermit, and Yajirub, who was trying to stuff his fat face with a handful of senzu beans. I kicked him in the head and took the senzu beans away from his hands. Those were precious resources that grew very slowly. I didn't need to let this fat slob who didn't even want to train seriously before the Saiyans came to eat them and waste them. Korin looked surprised at my interference. He wanted to chide him, but he couldn't as Yajirub sneakily made his way to the pot full of senzu beans. Yajirub got up the ground and asked what was the matter. I berated him on Korin's place, and told him of the beans' scarcity and importance. After Korin also chimed in on how he would have inflated like a balloon. After eating these many, he calmed down and shut up. Korin inquires to me how I knew about the beans' effects, and told him how Goku used them on Rashi, back after King Piccolo died. Korin nodded his head and inquired why we were here. I came here to save the senzu beans while Tien and Yamcha wanted to train. The cat didn't have many techniques besides the knowledge of growing senzu beans. I already knew the after image technique. So I inquired about the senzu beans growing technique before I let Yamcha and Tien start their training with Korin. Korin said that the soil used for the beans was essential. While it was supposed to be nourished by Kai day and night, the technique used to nourish them was also special. It was too much of a hassle to grow them by myself. Maybe I could just ask Shenron to give me a bag with an infinite amount of them. I should also make sure to ask Shenron to make the bag indestructible. I bid goodbye to Tian and Yamcha as they wanted to train with Korin. At their power level, Korin's training was still effective for them. I decided that I would train my body and go to Kami's, so I could learn to materialize and some of his other mind techniques. It was time. I started by directly using the gravity around me to 10 times normal, and it was a qualitative change. I see why Goku could increase his power level to 8,000 in 1 year. It was way more effective than below 10, but it was also quite harder. I immediately started to climb the tower, and I climbed and climbed, and it took me day and night. Under the stress of the gravity, my power level was going up every day. It took me 10 days and my power level increased to 520, and it was still going strong. I didn't get exhausted, and I took some senzu beans from Korin. If I got hungry I would eat one, and I didn't need to eat for half a month. After I got up so high not even the clouds remained, I spotted a ladder and the backside of the lookout. It looked just like in the anime, a big circle with a red bottom. I got up the ladder and arrived on the lookout. Kami's palace was in front, white porcelain squares on the ground, palm trees planted around and ground took from below the lookout. Suddenly sinister laughter, that sends chills down my spine, came from the palace's entrance. Wahaha hu hu hu. Then the laughter suddenly stopped, and a voice that shouldn't be heard by human ears suddenly was heard. A maggot made his way to Mr. Popo's lookout. At this moment I knew I fucked up. Chapter 14, Kami and the Pecking Order. The black genie Mr. Popo was extremely not like how he was in the anime. In the anime he was a soft-spoken servant of Kami's, but this Mr. Popo was vulgar and terrifying. The most terrifying aspect about him was that I couldn't sense his power level at all. He was like a vast black hole. His power level unimaginable. He immediately appeared in front of me and threw me away from the lookout, but I started flying, made my way back. He frowned at me, his red lips forming into a sadistic grin, and he said, "It seems this maggot doesn't know the pecking order. I guess I will have to teach you." He started to punch me and kick me, but I used all of my 6 dots and started to dodge and weave around his attacks. Mr. Popo looked surprised at me. It seemed, even though he was stronger than Canning, he couldn't reach my power level with my whole 6 dots, which was 33,280. Mr. Popo stopped attacking me and said with a huff, "It goes the dirt, the worms in the dirt, Popo's still, and Kami." His power level was a bit stronger than Vegeta's. After I took a look at it in my full power, he couldn't hide it from me. Mr. Popo just scoffed and called out, "Kami, you have a visitor." An old Namekian wearing a robe inscribed with the kanji for guardian came out of the palace. He also had a staff in his left hand. He nodded his head towards Mr. Popo and asked me, "Well, if it isn't the one who vanquished King Piccolo, why are you here?" I bowed towards Kami as a sign of respect towards Earth's guardian. Even though he couldn't do anything against Piccolo later, he would have still trained Goku and taught him so he could defeat him in his stead. He even wanted to sacrifice himself so Piccolo would die with him. I said after the bow, "Great Earth's Guardian Kami, I came here to seek out your techniques and training. I have heard tales about the great guardian of the earth below the tower. I had to make sure they were true, so I climbed my way here." Kami nodded his head. A lot of people wanted his training back in ancient times when the martial arts were flourishing. Now very few people trained in martial arts, and no one else was capable of climbing the tower to train with him. He also had high requirements of the person that could get up to the lookout. If he didn't meet them, Mr. Popo would throw them out. He asked me what I wanted him to teach me, and I responded with a simple, "Everything that you can, Mr. Kami. I know that you viewed my fight with King Piccolo, and you know what I'm capable of." Kami nodded his head. He didn't have to teach me, he could just impart his techniques to me through telepathy. So he did just that. I immediately learned materialization and a bunch of tricks and tips on how to control Kai better, and enter into a special meditative stance that could enhance my training speed, both mental and physical. Combined with my techniques which I trained in, my training speed would increase by a lot from now on. Kami was ready to take his leave as he already gave me all of his techniques that he could give without making me his successor. I suddenly stopped him and asked, "Is there anywhere I can train on this lookout? Somewhere I could train without any constraints?" Popo's eyes shined at my question and he immediately appeared in front of me and said, "There's a special chamber that could be used to shape you up, maggot. I mean esteemed guest." Kami didn't catch Popo's words clearly when he said maggot as he whispered that part to me. Kami was getting older and more senile with time, and he didn't realize Mr. Popo's true personality, it seems. Mr. Popo took me to the hyperbolic time chamber, and we both entered. Immediately he locked the door behind me, and threw me into the void of nothingness. That was the hyperbolic time chamber. He didn't accompany me. It seemed he wanted to torture me with the constant loneliness and nothingness of the chamber. But I couldn't fall for that since my mind was extremely strong. The gravity in here was 2 times normal Earth's, and the climate was harsh and ever-changing, but I could endure it. I started training. Materialize wasn't hard technique, so it was already mastered. Everything else Kami taught me wasn't things that could be mastered either, so I just put them in practice. I used Materialize to create a new fully weighted outfit for me which in total weighted above 1000 kilograms. I also created the gravity force field around me 10 times, combined with the 2 times from the chamber it became 20 times. I immediately was squashed to the floor. A red tint appeared around me due to the intensity of the gravity. I immediately got myself up and sat cross-legged as the healing factor started to heal my broken bones and torn muscles. I could feel them getting strengthened at an amazing pace, and even my kite grew stronger and stronger. Time was going by very fast in the hyperbolic time chamber. As soon as I got accustomed to the gravity, I increased it 11 times, 12 times, 20 times. By the time I got used to 20 times, 2 days already had gone by outside, while inside it was 2 whole years. I grew up more than the wish. I already was at 1 meter and 85 centimeters, but I could feel that I won't grow by much anymore. This was the body's limit. But my full power technique will still increase my mass and height. I could reach 2 meters in height with it. I didn't stop training my techniques, while training my body either. I could fully use all of my 6 dots without a big consumption now, and I tried to get the Asura mode to work, but unfortunately, I just couldn't do it. It wasn't a realistic technique. I could grow 2 more arms like Tien, but more than that, and it would just fail. It was just physically impossible. But I got a different idea. Instead of creating a physical representation of an Asura, maybe I could try to get an image behind me. I suddenly remembered about the doctrines of the Oran Temple. There were Shaolin Buddhists. Maybe I could try to create a Buddha. There were different types of Buddhas, some with many arms, some that looked like they were crying or laughing. Maybe I could create a Buddha image behind me which would increase my power, and it would help do techniques at the same time. I forgot the passage of time as 2 more days passed and 4 years passed in total. Behind me appeared an imposing Buddha figure with 6 arms. He didn't have 3 heads, but he had 3 faces, each changing intermittently at my will. One was peaceful, one angry, and one benevolent, like he wanted to save the world. My power level increased by 10 times the amount normal, and I could also use my dots, which by now didn't drain me of anything while using them. While I focused on techniques and not on the training, my power level didn't increase by much. I decided that I would inspect myself after I left the chamber. I decided to name my technique Benevolent Buddha Stand, as it appeared behind me just like the stand's powers from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and the Benevolent Buddha was the strongest form. It was time to go out. Mr. Popo finally remembered about me and he opened the door. I made my way out, and Mr. Popo did a double take when he looked at me. I instilled fear in him as he remembered how I could multiply my power level by quite a lot. Combined with my new power level, he knew he was outmatched right now. I checked my internal situation and I was surprised. 4 years of training and my power level reached 35,000. I was almost half as strong as Goku when he landed on Namek after he trained under 100 times normal gravity. Well, I trained under 40 times normal gravity, but I guess there would also be a qualitative change in training speed when you reached 100, just like when you reached 10. I bid Mr. Popo goodbye and made my way towards Cane House. I stopped by a river to clean myself and shave my beard that unknowingly grew after 4 years of solitude in the chamber. When I arrived at Cane House, everyone couldn't recognize me, but when they saw the 6 dots on my head they realized I was Krillin. Yamcha and Tien were still missing as they were training with Korin. But Rashi, Goku Launch and Bulma were astounded. I didn't hold anything for them, telling them about how I trained with Kami. It should help them in the long run, and I wasn't selfish. I was kind of sad I was sending them towards that devil Mr. Popo, but I don't think he would kill them. He seemed like a ruthless, creepy bastard, but I guess he had his limits on how he treated those he trained. I wasn't sure since I didn't truly train with him. I just helped all of them towards the lookout by flying extremely fast. Mr. Popo was startled when he saw me come in tow with all of them. I even went down the tower to take Tien and Yamcha. After that I left them to train after I took my goodbyes. There were 3 more years till Piccolo Jr. was going to make his debut, and I had to do some things before then. Firstly, I would revive all of the people that died in King Piccolo's attack. Secondly, I would use the Dragon Balls to go to planet Namek, get my potential unlocked and use their Dragon Balls. Thirdly, I was thinking of touring the universe. Planet Earth was already too small to contain me. I would visit from time to time after I learned instant transmission, and I would help them if they were in mortal peril, but it was time for me to unfurl my wings and fly. My training speed also increased more and more as my potential was getting unearthed. By the time it was time to get the Dragon Balls, I would have already reached a power level above 100,000. It was time to adventure into the galaxy and see new things, make my plot. I didn't need to follow the original one. I already helped the main cast by quite a bit. I even left them all of the senzu beans in case of emergency. There were also some secret stashes at Korin's, so Yajirobe wouldn't get his hands on them. I wouldn't interfere with Frieza or his family till I got strong enough. I could also weaken Cell if Dr. Gero didn't get his hands on Frieza's DNA. I would make sure I surely destroyed the tiny tyrant. I wasn't sure if Broly was the crazy one or the innocent one, since God didn't specify in what continuity of Dragon Ball I was. If he was the innocent one that was full of potential, I could take him on as my student. Having him as a student and friend would make for a great bodyguard that would get strong every time he fought, and even exceed the one he fought. If he was the evil crazy one, I could only send his on his way when I was stronger. I decided that I would never stop the gravity field from now on, and apply it only to the body, and not towards the surroundings. Every time my body wouldn't feel pressured at all, I would increase the weights and the gravity at the same time. I would make sure to stop the gravity and unweight my clothes if there was an emergency, though. I didn't want to get taken advantage of when I was in a weaker point. I decided to train in the wilderness till the Dragon Balls would get activated. I found a waterfall and started meditating under it. The gravity was crushing me. Combined with the weighted clothes, I had to do nothing else. I just started to focus on the continuous tempering of my mind, combined with the special sutra that purified my Kai and body. I stood immobile under the waterfall for a long time. Seasons came and go, and suddenly a beat from my chest pocket waked me up. The Dragon Balls activated again. It was time to gather them. Chapter 15. Reviving people and making preparations. It was extremely easy for me now that my power level was above 55,000. With all the training under the gravity and the waterfall, I could go around Earth very quickly. With the help of the Dragon Radar, it took me only a few hours to get a hold of them, since some of them were scattered in ravines, even volcanoes, so I immediately summoned Shenron. Arise, Shenron, and grant me my wish. Shenron came out of the Dragon Balls, and he started to grumble and mutter under his breath. Damn brat, how it seems he grew up. Can't he let me sleep for more? He solicits me every time the Dragon Balls are off cooldown. Can't a dragon have his beauty sleep? After that he said out loud, out with your wish already, I need to go back to sleep. He was grumpy. It seemed Shenron liked to sleep. I directly said my wish so he could leave. Revive all of the good people who were killed by King Piccolo directly or indirectly. Shenron's eyes glowed red and he disappeared in the sky. The strange thing was the fourth Dragon Ball didn't even leave, it just floated towards me slowly. It seemed Shenron realized I would grab it anyways, so he didn't even bother to scatter it around the world. Neat, huh? Now I just had to wait one more year before I made my way to Namek, so I decided to train with the others at the lookout to inspire them so they can become stronger. Goku was practically my bro as I grew up with him since we were 11, Yamcha and Tien weren't as close to me, but I could see us becoming friends in the future. I accelerated towards the lookout as my white golden aura enveloped me. After I created the benevolent Buddha stand technique, my aura changed from its black color to white gold. I wasn't truly sure why, maybe it was because of the states of the Buddha. I didn't fully use it as I had no one to fight, everyone was too weak. After 1 year everyone grew stronger. Goku was already nearing 800 power level, Yamcha was at 340, Tien at 420, and Master Roshi was actually at 650. They all grew stronger faster due to my influence. After they saw me, they all started to rush towards me. They missed me after 1 year of not seeing each other. I nodded at them. I missed all of them as well. I could feel a sense of kinship and friendship towards all of them. Goku and Roshi were like family to me. I talked to them about how they trained and gave them some tips and advice. Even though they looked exhausted and a bit scared by Mr. Popo's training regimen, they couldn't argue that it wasn't effective. Even though Yamcha would remain with the sequel, even now he was muttering, "The old dirt worms in the dirt Popos still can Popo." I think he followed that code religiously now. Tien wasn't as scared, but he looked shaken. Goku and Roshi were the least affected, but it was obvious the black genie inspired fear in both of them as well. And I understand why that damn fucker appeared right in front of me with no prior response. It seemed he grew stronger as well. His power level was now around 23,000. I wonder if Mr. Popo was so strong, why he never helped during the major crises in the series. But it was obvious this wasn't the same Mr. Popo from the original. Maybe he just didn't want to. I could see him do that with his personality. I just ignored Popo's maggot call and continued talking with my friends. I informed them on how next year I would leave the planet to go into a space adventure. They wanted to join, but I told them they were too weak, and I would let them join when they were at least as strong as I was now. Goku pouted, Tien looked downwards, and clenched his fist. Yamcha didn't care, he didn't want to go to space, he just said it cause the others wanted to, and he didn't want to be left out. I supervised their training for a few months, and they all grew enormously with me, and Mr. Popo guiding them at the same time. I also grew in power. Teaching was a way of learning as well. Goku broke off the 1000 mark, and reached 1100. He could trash Raditz down with no help now. Roshi got to 860, Tien to 560 and Yamcha to 440. I could see a pattern here. I couldn't say that Yamcha was the least talented, but he just didn't put as much heart and soul as the others. He seemed distracted by something. Tien, Goku and Roshi always trained with their best, but Yamcha seemed like he had another thoughts in his head. I singled him out during one of the training session and asked him about it. He shook his head and responded, "Hey man, it's not like I don't give my beast physically. It's just that it's lonely here. All men a green weird guy that looks like Piccolo and a black sadistic genie. I can't concentrate on the training properly at all." I nodded at his words. Unlike me, his mind wasn't tempered since a young age, and he had distracting thoughts in his head. I asked him if he would feel better if I took Pure here, his only companion, since he was a child. He nodded his head towards me. Having a more familiar face with him would help him concentrate better, and during breaks, he could even reminiscence with Pure about the past. I used my extremely fast speed to go to the cane house where we left Launch, Pure, Chiaotzu, and Yulong so they could take care of the house. I informed Pure about Yamcha's dilemma and he immediately wanted to come. Launch, Chiaotzu and Yulong wanted to come as well now that they heard where we were. I decided to amuse them, and took all of them with me. I used my telekinesis to take a hold of all of them, and levitated them around me just like the moon would gravitate around the earth. Launch, Xiaosu and Pure giggled. They seemed entertained by it, but Yulong's face started to turn green. Seemed the little bacon had motion sickness. I stopped the rotation and just quickly got them to the lookout. I didn't forget Rashi's house. I put it into a capsule which I would give to him later. I arrived with all of my passengers in tow. Launch sneezed, and she became blonde. Launch. She immediately launched herself towards Tian, and gave him a bear hug. It seemed things got steamy when I wasn't around. Cane house between blonde Launch and Tian. Yamcha looked enviously at the couple, but nodded towards Pure and started to talk with him. Chiaosu just looked with a smile at Tian and Launch. It seemed he was happy for his friend who found love. He seemed entirely supportive of their relationship. Yulong wasn't sure what he was supposed to do here, so he just observed. I gave the capsule to Rashi, when Mr. Popo suddenly appeared before Yulong, and sat with a sinister grin on his face. He licked his red lips, and his one tooth showed itself as well. The emergency food seems fresh enough. He seemingly lifted a giant black meat cleaver out of nowhere, and was ready to cleave the little piglet human into two at the first notice. But I stopped him. Well, Yulong was perverted and a bit immature. He was innocent. Didn't need to kill him. We also had plenty of food. Mr. Popo was just sadistic in his way. He scoffed towards me and gave me the middle finger while saying, "Lucky you, maggot, you are stronger than me right now." I just ignored him. I started to doubt Kami's ability to see in others' hearts. If Mr. Popo could live with him for so much time, and he still couldn't see this guy was evil incarnate. Or maybe Mr. Popo's concealing techniques were top-notch, as he could even surprise me when my power level was above his by quite a lot. Time passes by fast when you do what you like with friends and family. The Dragon Balls got activated again, and it was time for me to leave Earth. I gathered them even fastly than before. My power level already reached almost 90,000. It started to grow faster, and faster the higher it got. No bottlenecks were encountered. My body adapted itself more and more with the healing factor. It felt like it almost had no limits. I summoned Shenron. Everyone was around me. They were ready to tell me goodbye, as I wasn't sure when I would come back. Maybe before the next world tournament, maybe later. I was sure Goku would defeat Piccolo, as his power level was already almost at 2000. I chanted the words, "Arise Shenron and grant me my wish." And out of the balls came Shenron. For a few seconds he looked at me like he wanted to kill me, and started swearing out loud. "You little, I already told you I want to sleep. Why do you summon me again? I will trash your mother, you little dot." I surely just ignored the dragon, since he was grumpy for waking up so many times these years. I just told him my wish. Take me to planet Namek near a populated village. And I was gone in a flash. Shenron was too. The 4-star ball just flew towards Goku now. Since I wasn't there, Goku was pretty startled, but he grabbed the ball anyway. Now I found myself on blue earth and green sky. Strange blue trees were around me, and strangely shaped white houses. I was on Namek, and the natives weren't happy seeing me here. Chapter 16. Super Kami Guru, Nail and Wishes. The Namekians didn't look very friendly as they pointed their arms at me fully charged with Kai. It seemed the warriors weren't gone doing fieldwork today. They started to talk among themselves in their language which I didn't fully understand. This is one of the ancient albino Namekians. I thought we eliminated all of them for their transgressions. Should we inform the Grand Elder? Another one responded. Well, he kept his arm pointed at me. I think we should. An albino Namekian still alive is a great sin. Only the Grand Elder can give out the sentence pertaining to his life. I interrupted them speaking in the common earth tongue which was English, and they responded in English as well. "Hello, I don't understand what you are talking about there, but I would like to meet your Grand Elder." Before they responded to me, they gasped. It seemed they realized I wasn't an albino Namekian, and they responded, are you a visitor from beyond? What can we help you with besides taking you to the Grand Elder?" I informed them that I would like to talk the details thoroughly with their Grand Elder. They accepted my words, since their Grand Elder's word was law. If the Grand Elder accepted my request, they couldn't refuse it. I flew with them towards the Grand Elder's house, and it didn't take us more than 10 minutes. I just grabbed them, and made them tell me the directions, while also sensing with my Kai, to target the highest power level on the planet. I was met by a dull-looking Namekian that resembled Piccolo outside of a big white rotund house. It was Nail. When the other two Namekians explained my wish in their tongue, Nail scoffed and said, "You want to meet the Great Elder? That isn't so easy, especially for an outsider like you." But from inside came a booming voice that said, "Nail, do we have visitors?" Nail responded with respect, "Yes, Grand Elder, but..." Gur cut him off and said, "Bring them in." Nail was flustered and said, "But Grand Elder, what if they want to hurt you?" Gur just said to bring me in. And so he brought me. Nail wasn't happy at his grand elder's Gur's lack of foresight, but he didn't comment more. I entered and saw the giant green fat old slug on his chair. He was goddamn humongous. Seeing him in the anime was something, but seeing him in real life was truly different. Gur immediately frowned and said, "An albino Namikian. Kill him like the rest." I sword-dropped and Nail was ready to attack me, but I interrupted them by saying, "I'm not an albino Namikian, I come from Earth. I know about your race because of another Namikian that resides on the planet as the Guardian." Gur seemed like he realized something. "Though the son of Tat survived the purge, it seemed he was lucky. Let me take a look at your memories." I, of course, didn't let him look at all of my memories. I also planted some fake ones to make it seem like Kami taught me a bit about Namek, and that he didn't lose all of his memories. Gur snorted and said, "He calls himself Kami. Nail, from now on you shall address me as Super Kami." "Wait, no, Super Kami Gur." "Yes, Super Kami Gur." "Say it again, Nail." "Yes, Super Kami Gur." I immediately stopped them, and Gur knew what I was after, so he gave me the Dragon Ball from above his chair, and put his hand on my head again. Immediately I could feel the Kai unlock deep within me. Stir, Super Kami Gur said. "Your potential is limitless due to your special body. I can't even bring out a true fraction of it, but the increase will be substantial." I could feel my power level skyrocket. 100,000, 200,000, it stopped only at 900,000, just a little shy of a million. I was almost as strong as Frieza's second form in my base. Gur nodded his head, and he felt quite drained at unlocking my potential. While it didn't shorten his lifespan, it did put quite high energy consumption on him, because of my high potential. I nodded at Gur and thanked him. Nail started to accompany me, but before we truly left, Super Kami Gur said again, "Nail, the next time the Dragon Balls cool off, summon Purunga and ask him for a big plasma TV." But Super Kami Gur, that would be a great misuse of their powers. Did I stutter? "I want a big plasma TV." "Sai, okay, Super Kami Gur, I will see it done the next time the Dragon Balls are ready to be used." "So you should do." After that conversation, we left, and it didn't take long to gather all of the Dragon Balls. I didn't know Namek's language, so I had Nail to say the password. It was the same as Shenron's, but instead of Shenron they said Purunga, and it was in their language. "Arise, Purunga, and grant me my wish." A giant buff dragon with horns and Namikian antennae came out of the balls. Holy shit, their Shenron was jacked. It was completely different seeing him up close. He looked like he hit the gym 7 out of 7, while taking steroids by inhaling them through the nose. He started to speak in a common tongue and said, "I will grant you 3 wishes." Nail looked at me and inquired with his eyes what my wishes were, and I told him. "Firstly, give me a special ship with the Super Dragon Ball radar incorporated in it. The ship should contain an infinite amount of food, a gravity chamber that can increase its gravity how much I want, and it should be able to compress itself just like capsules on Earth. It should also have all of the coordinates of the populated planets within this universe, information about the planet and all, while being at it make it indestructible as well." Nail explained to the dragon, but the dragon said, "All of it is doable besides being indestructible. There are some forces out there that can destroy anything. The most I can do for you is to be indestructible to forces below that power." I nodded my head and Nail confirmed the wish. A tiny capsule appeared in my hands. One wish was done, it was time for the next one. This one would be important for me. Give me a God Kai training room that can be installed in the spaceship or taken away at will, being just like the spaceship, meaning that I want to be able to carry it with me at will. When the dragon heard this wish, he shook his head and said in a booming voice, "Impossible. My creator doesn't have God Kai. I cannot help you with this one." "Say another one." Well, one plan was out of the window. I guess to reach God Kai, I would have to train normally and accumulate it as Vegeta did. I couldn't take the easy way out like Goku did with his "let's hold hands" and I get God Kai now. Well, I guess I could use something else then. Impart to me the best magic and Kai techniques known in the universe. His eyes glowed, and my brain instantly started to work. It was extremely strong. It could take everything the dragon put into it. My eyes glowed. A lot of techniques were very useful. Magic was used with Kai, but in different type of form. While Kai was used for attack, defense, and fighting in general, magic was more of a supporting type of Kai usage. You could create beings or infuse yourself with magic to increase your power level, stop emotions, and summon beings from the other world. As for the Kai techniques, there were different types of beams, but there were also special techniques like my benevolent Buddha stand. With it, I even got my hands on the Kaiken and instant transmission. I didn't need to visit Yordrat anymore. I decided that immediately when I left Namek, I would make sure to train in all of the techniques and master them. As for the last third wish, I wasn't sure what to wish for. Maybe give me a bag of senzu beans that has an infinite amount of them inside. Will also make them as indestructible as the spaceship. The dragon shook his head again and said, "These magical beans are too overpowered with no drawbacks. I can't give you an infinite amount of them. It would break the laws of balance, and it might wake up someone sooner than intended." I sweat dropped. I almost woke up Beerus by accident. Another wish out of the window. I wondered what else I could wish for, but it suddenly hit me in the head. Why didn't I think about this before? I wished for all my support techniques to be combined into one super technique that can increase my power level based on all of the other multipliers. The dragon's eyes shined, and he left. Nail looked at me with wonder in his eyes, not being sure how many techniques I had, but with the new techniques I got from the other wish I had quite a damn lot. Combined with the others that I had, maybe when I fully used the combined version, I could even compare to Super Saiyan Blue's multiplier. I immediately tried to activate the amalgam of techniques. Firstly, my Buddha stand appeared before me, its strongest form on display, the benevolent face. Lightning appeared around me as Godspeed was activated. My muscles bulged up, and a red aura also appeared around me at its maximum potential. All my dots activated at the same time, and combined into one dot on my forehead which shined a pale gold. I could feel my power explode. This was the combination of all of my techniques, and it was way above any Super Saiyan multipliers below the god forms. But immediately I coughed up blood, and I sagged down to the green earth. My body immediately started to heal up, and my power level increased, reaching 1 million. It seemed my body wasn't ready to use the whole fusion of techniques. I could use them individually or a few of them combined, but not all of them. I nodded towards myself. Nail was shocked as he could feel my power for a second. Then it disappeared when I entered in my now dubbed Supreme mode. I exceeded his sensing capabilities, but now it came back to above 1 million, and the power still shocked him so hard he almost started shaking. His power level was just around 42,000, so of course, he would be scared. I nodded towards him, and indicated that I was going to leave. He bowed towards me, and I left using the spaceship, which was extremely fast, and luxurious in the inside. It seemed Purunga knew his stuff. I immediately turned the gravity to 200, while I materialized heavier weights on me. I turned the gravity field around me to 2 as well, reaching the amount of 400. I already trained with the gravity above Vegeta's, when he tried to surpass Goku, and get the Super Saiyan form. I made the ship wander around the universe as I didn't have a certain destination in mind. Maybe I would swoop in and save someone from a villain, who knows. I wasn't very top tier in power, but compared to everyone else in the universe, I was only rivaled and outclassed by the Frost family, but that could be considered in base power alone. Now I could truly protect myself in the universe. Well, if Beers came now and decided to make me space dust, I still couldn't do much, but everyone else was game on. Well, the Frost family was. I don't think I could beat Cell or Majin Buu yet. They were way too strong maybe if I used my Supreme mode, but it was impossible to use in a fight right now. I immediately started to train the other techniques that I got from Purunga, while under the stress of high gravity to temper my body. Instant transmission wasn't hard as my Kai control and sense were impeccable. I could sense Earth and countless other Kais in the universe. It overwhelmed me a bit, but I closed my senses to the mostly unknown or very small Kais. I could feel Goku's Kai as I made myself familiar with it. I could also feel huge Kais with a tint of frost in them. It was the Frost family's Kais. They were all scattered through the whole galaxy. Frieza's was the nearest as I could feel he was half as strong as me in his first form. Then it was Cooler, who was extremely strong. He was stronger than Frieza's final form by a bit, not counting his transformation. There was also Cold. He was also a bit stronger than Frieza's final form. Now I understood when Frieza said he was only bested by his family. They were a tiny bit stronger than Frieza, but not enough to thrash him around like a ragdoll. I wasn't a saint nor a hero. If Frieza intervened with me, or if I would let him still roam around, lives would be lost. But as I didn't see them, it was not my job. If I saw some injustice going on, I would help, but I wouldn't go around parading myself as a hero of justice. I felt bad about what King Piccolo did on Earth because it was my home planet. My kin was on it. Why would I care about the other alien races? Would the alien races care about my well-being or my planets? I'm sure as hell they wouldn't. While I was pondering, the Super Dragon Ball radar started beeping. It seemed a Super Dragon Ball was near. Well guys, that is it for now. If you made it to the end, comment #Eve.